Before getting into today's review, I gotta give out a big thank you because we hit 500 subscribers on the channel after the Crown of Swords review came out. So yeah, thanks for the support, guys. It means a lot. I really didn't expect to hit this milestone after just 5 months. Okay, that's enough of that. Today's review is going to be on Winter's Heart. It's going to be spoiler filled. You guys already know how it goes by now. I thought this book was pretty good. I'm not sure which one I'd choose between it and The Path of Daggers. I think they're pretty much even for me. I don't really have anything to say for this book as a whole, other than that I thought it was a good entry in the series. I can separate books 7 to 9 and remember what happens in each of them, but they do kind of all feel like 3 acts of the same book, and this book in particular is just kind of advancing arcs that have been previously established. With that in mind, just going to jump straight into the book. This prologue focuses on Siain, Tovann, Rand and Elayne. Siain's portion is just them continuing on from book 8, and they crack their first dark friend in Talene using the Chair of Remorse. Thought that was a pretty cool triangle. I'm interested in seeing if it's used later on in the series. Elayne's portion of the prologue is literally the only Elayne content I enjoyed in the whole book. We see her in her rooms in the royal palace, and she's interrupted by, who was it? Taim, the Sea Folk, and Nadir. Taim is most definitely a dark friend, but I really enjoy the scenes with him in them. I find his cunningness really entertaining. Elayne is brought away for the birthing ceremony that will make her and Avian the first sisters. I thought that was great. It was really trippy. I was just expecting it to be some mundane ritual with some candles or some shit, but the girls have to actually go through the birthing process again using the one power. I thought that was a great sequence, and I thought it was really cool how their spoken words were stored up like that. However, I did not anticipate how much I would despise Elayne and Avienda actually being first sisters. I am now just perpetually rolling my eyes whenever Avienda growls or does something else annoying when people don't treat Elayne like the queen of the fucking world. I thought Tovan's part was great. I didn't expect the Ashman to have their own properly fleshed out conflict. I thought some would just split off from Rand, but no, we have actual factions, with the main ones being Taim's and Logain's. So we have this Ashman conflict, and meanwhile Tovann and Gabrielle are trying to work around their bond in a way that can make them make the Black Tower a tool for the White Tower. So it'll be interesting seeing how these two things play out. So I guess the portion of Elida's prophecy from book 7 about the sisters walking the Black Tower's grounds was referencing this. So I guess I was right when I said that the parts of that foretelling aren't all connected. I'm curious about what Logain's plans actually are, because we saw that he's looking for Ashman that can heal being severed like Nynaeve can. We know his desire to wipe out the Red Tower. Maybe that's a part of that plan. We also saw him burn Tovan's papers that would incriminate her, so I guess he is genuinely a good guy. He seems like one so far, at least from this book, and he seemed like one in books 5 and 6 as well. We've had Min's viewings of Logain and his aura of honor and glory, but we've also had Egwene's vision of Logain stepping over Rand's body to mount a black stone from book 7, and we've had the viewing of Blackrock wet with blood from book 1, so I wonder how all these things actually tie into each other. Rand's part of the prologue is just him revealing his plan to cleanse Saidin. I really enjoyed being back at the academy. I really liked hearing about all the different inventions being developed, like the steam engines, and then besides that we just hear that he's been laying down different traps to lure his enemies to for Madding. We're still in blocks for character arcs in this book. The first one was Perrin's, and honestly I'm starting to lose hope. Perrin has just been continuously getting shit on since book 4. I don't really get why Jordan is doing him so dirty. Like, up until book 8 he had an interesting arc of becoming a leader, but he still had his relationship with Fail on the side as like an annoying aspect. Now that his leadership arc is completed, Perrin is lame as fuck. I'm sorry to say it, I hate to say it, because he was my favourite after book 4, but my patience with him has ran out. Like, now his character is just 80% him worrying over Fail, and it's just annoying. It's not like I expect him not to worry over her capture, but god, it's tedious how he's just constantly saying how nothing matters more than Fail and constantly worrying about her in his head. The worst part is he's literally willing to fuck up every plan and action for Fail. Yes, it's his wife, he loves her, she's just been kidnapped, but it's just tedious. I really hope there's more to Perrin going forward. I know we still have the swapping from the axe to the hammer arc for him. Hopefully that will become more prevalent. So we start off with Perrin as he's leaving the Prophet, and he's reflecting on how the plan to bring Masema to Rand using travelling is screwed, and Balor has unofficially started acting as Perrin's spymaster, and he updates Perrin on battles involving the Chonchan and some involving the White Cloaks. So King Elrond has been wiped out and Valda is now on his own. I'm really interested in seeing how Perrin actually handles everything, because there's the White Cloaks, the Shaido, the Prophet, the Chonchan, and Slayer's getting involved now too, so I wonder how he'll actually deal with this many opponents. Like, surely he'll have to side with at least one of them. Maybe Fail makes a deal with the Shaido or something, because I highly doubt he sides with White Cloaks anytime soon, unless Bornhold just isn't a part of that particular group. After Perrin returns to the camp, he finds everyone at odds and the tensions are running high because Oleandre has been captured by the Aiel, and Elayne reveals to Perrin that Fael has also been captured, which sends him into a rage, and he tries to reach out to the wolves for help, but he receives a collective "Nah, gee, I'm good," because they don't like to get involved with the two legs. Fast forward a bit, and we get Perrin's first wolf dream in a while, where he's trying to find Fael, but Hopper stops him because he's in Telaine Riad too strongly, and when he wakes up, he's in Elayne's tent after passing out in the cold the night before. And Elayne updates him on the situation with the scouts, and that Masema is gathering thousands of men rather than the 200 agreed upon. I actually enjoyed the interactions between Perrin and Elayne in this. I thought they would be tedious to read. I actually kind of feel bad for Elayne because Perrin is pretty much just dismissing her feelings as some kind of game, which clearly hurts her at times, and Perrin just doesn't get any of the hints on that from her maids or Honora, but I can't really blame him. She's doing this while Fael is kidnapped. I thought it was pretty funny how pissed Linny got with Perrin thinking that he had slept with Elayne. So after Perrin convinces Fael's posse to obey him until she returns, he finds out that Fael and the other captives are still alive, so he decides to chase the shadows south and is joined by Masema, who actually agrees to travel through gateways with Perrin because killing the shadow would be doing the light's work, as he put it. So I guess Masema is just avoiding Rand. It seems to me like he just wants the power of being the prophet of the dragon without actually having to be working under the dragon. So I wouldn't be surprised if he's relaying their location to the Shanchan while he's with Perrin. That pretty much wraps up Perrin's arc. Didn't think it was anything special. I really hope his arc improves going forward. We had some Fael POVs too during Perrin's block. We see her being forced to march through the snow naked by the shadow before she loses consciousness. This actually made me respect Fael a lot more. She's definitely a strong woman, and I like the show of determination there from her. She wakes up in the Shadow camp with some other Geishane before she's met by Tharava, Sumerian, and eventually Savannah too, and we see how Galena has been being treated since being made Geishane. So all the captured women are made Savannah's Geishane too, but Tharava forces them to try and spy on Savannah, and if things weren't tricky enough, Galena also blackmails them into trying to steal the Ultrod from Savannah. Thought Fael's arc was only decent as well. You guys know I find the Shadow to be extremely boring, but like I said earlier, it did make me like Fael a lot more. It's funny how I like Fael more separated from Perrin, but the reverse is true for Perrin. Elayne's arc was next, and good God was it boring. I didn't think anything could bore me more than the Shadow or Egwene's Aes Sedai politics, but no, Elayne said hold my mulled wine, and boom, Andorran politics. Why the hell is Elayne even the main character now? She sucks. She's easily the worst of the main cast, and if I'm being fully honest, I think her arc sucks too. She's just learning how to become a good queen. Like, do we really need that as a main arc taking up 200 pages in a book? I could not give less of a shit about the succession in Andor. I don't see the relevance, and I really don't think that characters other than the Emond's Field 5 should be the main focus of the books, and I think characters like Elayne should just have smaller subplots like Swan did after she got stilled. I think I would enjoy books 7 to 9 a lot more if that was the case. I'm not summarising this arc. I did not enjoy it at all. The only parts of Elayne's arc I liked were the Darkfriend POVs. Elayne's gone to the point now where I dread seeing that the next chapter is her POV. And it's not just Elayne I dislike. I can't stand her relationship dynamics. I thought Avienda was pretty cool in previous books, but her as Elayne's first sister is insufferable, and I hate her dynamic with Brigitte as her warder too. Elayne just thinks she knows what's best for everyone, and it's so annoying. She just forces Brigitte into the positions that she wants her in. Like, I get Brigitte has her complex over not living up to the legends, but the way Elayne tries to deal with that pisses me off. And also, I understand that she did bond Brigitte as her warder to save her life, but it was still without consent, and now she just expects Brigitte to be the perfect warder, and she gets pissed off whenever she doesn't obey meekly. And I hate how high and mighty Elayne is. She spent half her arc in the last 2 books whining over Aes Sedai, Seafolk, and kin, not treating her as they should. And then when Nynaeve says she might have to order Elayne to do something, she's like, please don't, I'd hate to have to disobey you. Like, what? Please fuck off, Elayne. The worst part of this book was her waking up from the fork root. I wish she entered into an eternal slumber. And I can't believe she had the fucking nerve to take over Rand's academy. She even understands that Rand just wants to leave something behind if he dies, and she still says it'll be Andor's and not Rand's. Can Elayne please die? Oh, well, she's pregnant now. I don't want the kids to die, but her dying during childbirth would be pretty okay with me. I'm actually dreading reading the next book because it'll most likely be Elaine's Queen arc with her probably being a bitch about being pregnant, Egwene's Tar Valon arc, and the Shadow arc all tied into one bundle of boredom. It was said during Elayne's arc that the Aes Sedai that killed Adelias and Ispan was one of Merilil, Sarita, or Carianne. And Sarita vanished at some point, so I assume it was her that's the Dark Friend, and she was meeting up with the other Black Aja in the city. So talking about the Dark Friend POVs that I enjoyed, I thought the Plan Succeeds chapter was really good. I was actually raging when the Fork Root incident happened, because I was like, there's no way they got off that easy. Elayne just takes out two people with a chair and then nothing happens. She gets healed, so what was the point even? But then we find out that it was all part of the plan to get David Hanlon instated as captain of Elayne's bodyguards. So I thought that was pretty cool. I enjoyed catching up with the Black Azure from Tanchico again. So I was right in my book 6 review when I said the mystery Aes Sedai healing cats was probably Marilyn. Tamela said that there was a third person spying on the girls in Elayne Riad besides her and Slayer. It could probably be one of the Forsaken, maybe Miss Anna. There was this mystery woman in Elayne Riad before, though, during the Dragon Reborn. She appeared to be really old and decrepit looking. I said in my review for Book 3 that I thought this was Corianne and Nadil. She hasn't shown up again since Book 3, so maybe it's her again, if not one of the Forsaken. There was Min's viewing in Book 8 of David Hanlon carrying out violence again in the future, so fingers crossed him, Shine, and the Black Aja can fuck over Elayne a little bit. Next up we have Rand. Rand and Mat carried the hell out of this book for me. Rand's arc was great. When we first meet him, he is using a gateway into the Royal Palace's attic before disguising himself as Newly and meeting up with Nynaeve for the first time in ages. And he asks her to hold on to the two access key triangles while he goes kill the renegades, but Nynaeve insists on her and Lan accompanying him. Then we have the harem finally fully assembled and reunited with Rand, and we get everybody professing their love. Ugh. And after that's out of the way, we get the triple water bond I have been dreading since Min had her first viewing about it. I did not like this at all. I probably wouldn't even care if it was just Avienda and Min doing it, but I just did not want Elayne to bond Rand at all. The way I see it is, when you have characters like Elayne and, say, Egwene as well, who act all high and mighty, and what they want, they act as if it's a matter of fact that they'll get it. To me, when a character is like that, they should not get what they want that easily. Especially Elayne, seen as early on as like book 4 or 5, she's going on like, oh, I'm gonna bond the Dragon Reborn. That's just gonna happen. That's how it's gonna work out because I love him. So obviously I'm gonna bond him. Like, fuck off, Shirley. With that kind of mindset, you don't just get what you want as easy as meeting up with him for the first time in ages and then bonding him after telling him you love him. Like, I felt like this arc didn't have much development for Rand's character up until he's put into the cell and he starts to harden more, but this lack of development is compensated by seeing Rand from the POVs of others. Like, when Nynaeve first sees Rand, it really sinks in just how much he's changed. And when he comes back from fighting the renegades, Min talks about how she didn't feel any anger, fear, or concern at all when he was fighting them, and his response is, well, why would he? Rockade just needed killing. And it never really clicked for me just how far gone Rand is now until we got that bit with him and Min. And you can really see what Katsuin means in that moment when she says that he's turning into a stone. And again, you can see this in how the bond shows the girls that Rand is still feeling all this pain from the what are they? The heron brandings and the dragon tattoos, and he's not even conscious of it anymore. Speaking on Min real quick, I don't like Min at all anymore. She's so annoying. She's getting way too big for her boots. It's not even like she's mischievous in some kind of cute way. She's just a pain in the ass. And like every other female character, now she thinks she always knows what's best. Like her trying to throw Fane's letter into the fire, and then she's just generally more annoying now. Like her during the final battle, and she's being a little wine bag. Like, oh, let me get to Rand. Wah. Min just needs to calm down and slow her roll. The next time we see Rand is in Formatting. I thought the Formatting portion of this book was fantastic. He starts off following Rockade, but it turns out Rockade was just luring him to a narrow alleyway the whole time where he's confronted by him and Kissman, and Rand just fucking crushes Rockade's windpipe. That was sick. I didn't think Rand had hands like that without a sword. And then Kissman tries to leap down and skewer around with his sword and ends up plunging it into Rockade, killing him. The antagonists in this book are almost comical, and they all end up looking like one of the Three Stooges at some point besides like Marden and Taim, and I guess Slayer as well. After Kissman and Rand split, Kissman is killed by Padan Fane, who is able to use his powers in Formatting still, which is pretty interesting. We also see that Kissman was told by Taim, Marden and Demon Dread to kill Rand, so I'm going to take it as confirmed that Taim is in fact a Dark Friend. Thought it was pretty interesting that Marden seemed to think that Rand's possessions were more important than Rand himself, so I guess Marden wanted to use the Chodan Kal for some reason. Arengar implied during the meeting the Forsaken had that she has Egwene pinned, So I guess the Saladari Aes Sedai are in for a bad time at some point. She also mentioned that Demon Dread is keeping an eye on Rand as well. I have no idea who he's posing on at the moment, unless it's just some other random Asherman that's close to Rand. There weren't any more mentions of bronze skirts in this book, so I guess Romanda is actually Messaana, unless bronze skirts are mentioned again next book, because we know all these books are kind of the one long book split into 4. And after Rand moves everyone to another inn to avoid the renegades, Cadsuane and Alanna show up, and Alanna and Rand have their first proper interaction as Aes Sedai and Warder, if I'm not mistaken. I like this interaction, made me like Alanna more. I know bonding Rand without consent is awful, but I liked how willing she was to serve Rand, and she seems to genuinely care about Rand as her warder. And I like how she's helping Rand to trust Aes Sedai a bit again, but I don't think it'll last. If all the Aes Sedai sworn to Rand besides the 5 Min said were in his hand have been compelled by Perrin, then I really think they're going to cause Rand a good bit of harm in the future. But for now, I am enjoying the 5 that we know are in Rand's hand. I like the dynamic between Rand and Alanna now, and I like Morana too. Something I found interesting was that when Alanna was unconscious, Perrin looked terrified. So I think I was right last video when I said that Perrin has used compulsion on Alanna then, because I think that was maybe her being terrified because she thought she was going to get cut out for it there. And seeing as she's terrified, I assume she used compulsion on Alanna recently, and that's why she was so vehement on finding Rand using her bond. We got a Slayer POV again for the first time since book 4, I think, and we actually got some pretty interesting stuff from that POV. So Slayer was sent by some mystery man to kill Rand, and Luke is able to tell. Luke knows that Rand is his nephew somehow, unless he's just going off of resemblance. But the thing I found most interesting about Slayer's POV was that he said he had killed a Grey Man in the White Tower before. So the Grey Man that Nynaeve and Egwene found stabbed to death in the White Tower during the Shadow Rising was killed by Slayer. I have no idea why he would have done that. And then it also turns out that Amiko and Joya were killed by Slayer as well during the Shadow Rising. So the Forsaken have been using him in the story for a while before we actually met him. Amiko and Joya being killed makes sense because they're dark friends. They don't want to, people don't want to let them spill the beans. But I have no clue why somebody would give Slayer orders that would cause him to save Nynaeve and Egwene. Also, no idea who the mystery man that hired Slayer was. If I had to guess, I'd say Taim. Fast forward again, and we see Rand finally accept Cadsuane's conditions to be his advisor. And he gets the bait letter telling him where Gedwyn and Torval are staying. So him, Lan, and Nynaeve head to Blue Carp Street, where Rand spots the 2 renegades before entering the bootmaking shop's attic, only to find the 2 already dead. Then we get another Rand and Fane fight, but I wasn't really crazy about this one, if I'm being honest. I'm not too interested in the whole cat and mouse thing they have going on. It's been going on for so many books now that it's kind of gotten stale for me. Though I did think it was pretty cool seeing that ability Fane has now to show people in the past, or whatever that was. He's getting a pretty neat suite of abilities. So this altercation and Nynaeve's power usage causes the street guards to surround the place, and when Rand and Lan are trying to flee the scene, Lan slips, Rand catches him, and causes them both to fall. I loved the Rand and Lan dynamic in this book, seeing them working together and Nynaeve noticing how much Rand has become like Lan. And I love the line where Rand says he'll let Lan fall when the sun turns green, and Lan is back to spitting poetry again with his line about, what was it called? A portion of wisdom. So Rand is captured and kept in a tiny cell, and we see his trauma over being kept in the box start to rear its head up again, and he's scared that Aes Sedai sent by Elayne are going to come for him, and that he could possibly be there for months until they arrive. And this leads to him reciting his list of women whose deaths he blames himself for, and he resigns himself to becoming as hard as possible so that he never makes those mistakes again. Rand is still struggling with the sickness and the shimmering faces. Loose Turn keeps implying that there's 3 of them now, not 2, so I'm just really confused there. I'm going to assume that my theory about there being 2 Rands is true because of the Aelfinn. I completely forgot Rand even went to the Aelfinn, not just Mat, because Rand never mentions it. But they said that to live, Rand must die, so I assume one Rand dies and the other one survives. Loose Turn also keeps implying that they're already dead, and that Rand is the one tormenting him, so I'm just really confused about the whole situation. I still think there's a Shadow Rand and a Light Rand. Maybe there's just 2 Rands and a loose Terran. I just really don't have any idea what's going on there. Then we have the final chapter, which was incredible. Though I still like the Mice Wells and the final Emmons Fields battle from book 4 more than this one, though, just because the Forsaken were so comical. I just couldn't take them as serious threats. Seriously, it's like watching the Three Stooges in action, except there's like, what, 5 of them or 6 of them instead. Like, even Moghedien, she's just trying to chill out on top of a mountain and see what's going on, and she gets yeeted off of it. I still love this battle, though. I really like how there's a bunch of short POVs in quick succession after everybody splits up and gets into position, and it really makes it feel frantic. So yeah, I just can't take the Forsaken seriously anymore. The only one I see actually doing anything is Moradin, maybe Sindain, and maybe Demon Dread. And if Sindain isn't just dead now after fighting Olivia or captured, like, you have Demon Dread and Sindain talking big shit like they're going to be huge threats to her hand. Then 5 minutes later, Demon Dread is getting his ass beat by Flynn, and Sindain is on the ropes as well with Olivia. So that being said, I did love all their POVs. Watching them try and deal with Katswain's 1-power detecting Terangriel combined with Kalandor was really fun, and I enjoyed all the POVs from the different circle groups too. I think my favourite POVs from the battle were Eben's, where they find Erengar, Elza's, and Varian's, where they find Grendal. I thought the moment where he's like, she's holding Saladin was awesome, and I thought Varian was an absolute badass during her one. She's just knocked out at all by one of the Forsaken, and she says she's come too far now to die. Thought that was sick. And then Elza's POV is just a comedy. She reveals she's a dark friend, and then we have Osengar going on and on about how he's going to be the hero and he's going to take Kalandor, and Elza just deletes him from existence along with the entire top of that hill. Katswain as well was badass. She went all out weaving that shield to cover Rand and Nynaeve while also detecting where the Forsaken were channeling from, and you can really see the value in having her as an ally and how well she organized everything. And then as the battle is underway, we see this darker than black flattened dome being generated in the sky above Shadar Lagot. So if I'm not mistaken, that is the taint solidified because Saladin is being funneled into Shadar Lagot, causing the taint to be repelled from the opposite darkness. Makes me wonder if there's an opposite light for the light, the same way there's the darkness for the shadow. Maybe that's how Perrin eventually channels to fly, or how there's all these other abilities that aren't part of the 1-power that have been mentioned through the series, like what were some Wolf Brothers, sniffers like Hurin, Min's Viewings, etc. I also wonder how all the Aiel will react to what Rand has done now. Like, surely the Maidens will just fully disown him because he was already on really thin ice after not bringing them to Elayne with him. So all the Forsaken identities have been revealed by this point. I think we have Osengar / Tashiva is Agenor. He was talking about creating the Trollocs. Sindain is Lanfear. She was being a Psycho X. Moradin is Ishmael. The other Forsaken, we're talking about how crazy he's always been. So by process of elimination, Erengar is Balthamel. Ramanda is possibly Messana going off the bronze skirts thing. And that is so obviously Shemiraj. I'll talk about that later. Oh fuck, man. Grendal and Demon Dread. Shit, okay. 2 Forsaken identities still remaining. I don't think Grendal was even posing as anybody though. She's just been sending off the fake letters to, what's his name? Rothdel Ituralde was that his name? And I have no idea who Demon Dread is. Sindain said that she was held by the Aelfin and the Aelfin, so I am going to guess that Moiraine is being held by them too. Maybe I'm wrong on this and I'll be looking goofy, but I think it's pretty certain that Moiraine will be back at some point. There's just so many hints that point towards it, like she said she knows who she'll marry. There was the Min's Viewing from book 7 where she said Fran needs Moiraine or she'll surely fail, which I think is the biggest indicator. Then during book 5, Egwene had her dream vision of Tom putting his hand into fire to bring back the stone that she wears on her forehead. So now that Tom and Mat are back in the same party, I think that will possibly lead to them going to the Tower of Genji, and maybe that's how they bring her back. Also in book 8, Egwene had her dream vision of Mat balancing 2 Aes Sedai on a scale, and something vast depended on his decision. So I think one of those was Moiraine, and maybe the other one is Tuon. I'm not really too sure on who the other one would be, but I think maybe Tuon, because Egwene also said in book 8 that all of her dreams recently of Mat have been pale and full of pain. So I think some of that pain will be from having to choose Moiraine over Tuon. And also, there's all these other visions of Mat placing his left eyeball on the balance scale as well. So the pain of that, plus the pain of having to choose Moiraine over Tuon after marrying her, would be pretty painful. If I was to make a wild guess, I think that would hurt Mat a bit. That's why I noted after the battle that there were a few squirts Forsaken. So more must have died than just Osangar. I've been saying for a while now that I think Taim is going to be in a bliss, so I think after this battle he'll finally be raised to Forsaken, because Marden joked around in Book 7 saying Moghedien is still one of the chosen because there's nobody to replace her. Well, there's definitely Taim to replace the male chosen. Nynaeve, once again, doesn't have many POVs in this book, but she's finally recovered, guys. She's back to being one of my favourites. She's made huge strides in dealing with her temper and how she treats people in general. And I loved her reunion with Rand. Like, when was the last time they were even last together? Like, end of The Dragon Reborn or early Shadow Rising. She recognizes the changes in Rand, but she still sees him as Rand rather than the Dragon Reborn. And I thought it was pretty funny how Nynaeve wanted to use the Mirrors of Mist ability just to show Rand that she can do it too. And again, we see how much of a caregiver she is when Rand stumbles, and she has literally zero hesitation in rushing to delve him. And I thought it was great how Rand literally just wants her to hold on to the two Tarangiel while he's gone, but she insists on her and Lan going with him. I'm sure she's fully aware of the possible dangers associated with trying to cleanse saidin, but she's still dead set on being there for Rand. It's like I said in my Book 7 review, Nynaeve is someone you can always depend on. I love the trio of Rand, Lan, and Nynaeve. Min was there too, but she doesn't really count. The trio really showed just how much Nynaeve has grown when it comes to her temper and mindset, because Rand has not exactly been using much tact lately when dealing with others, to put it lightly. But the most Nynaeve ever does with him is either glare or growl him, and it shows as well how she regards Rand now. I'd say Rand is the one that she acknowledges the most as not being the same kid that she used to look after, besides Egwene. And again, we see just how much she cares about others when Lan and Rand fall off the roof, and she's adamant on going back for them. But the thing that really made Nynaeve become one of my favorites again was the fact that she approached Cadsuane and asked for teachings just so that she could try and curry favour with the hopes of bringing Cadsuane closer to Rand. We all know how much Nynaeve would hate being in that kind of position, so that kind of sacrifice made my respect for her shoot up. Cadsuane was great in this. I'm still not sure how much I trust her, but as a character, she's definitely one of my favourite side characters now. She's simply a boss. I can't help but respect it. She's able to manipulate people into doing her bidding easily and have them still thinking they're making all the decisions themselves. We start off with Cadsuane in the Sun Palace, where she's trying to figure out why all these Aes Sedai are swaying to Rand, and there's some interesting stuff in that chapter. The first one being that Perrin got the vial of stuff that makes you sleep from Sorelia that early on. So Perrin was planning Cadsuane's death that early. If she's not a dark friend, she has to have some crazy good motivations to be this willing to kill Aes Sedai. We find out that Flynn is the second person to figure out how to heal Stilling, but Corell said that Ergain was back to as if she had never been stilled, so she didn't get the drop-off like Swan and Leanne did. I went back to the Lord of Chaos to see if Logain was back at full strength too, but we don't get any POVs from him in that book, so I'm not too sure. However, Nynaeve did struggle in keeping the shield up with him, so if he's a match for Nynaeve, then I assume he's back at full strength too, right? So unless I'm interpreting that wrong, it seems that you need to be healed by the opposite half of the power. It was so annoying how Min's stupid viewing turned Rand into a schoolgirl when it comes to Cadsuane. Like, he's always wondering whether or not she's talking about him or sending people to talk to him for her, and he's always worrying about whether or not she really cares about him. Like, now that I like Cadsuane, ideally her and Rand would form a kind of aunt and nephew relationship, albeit a very strict aunt. We had that bit where Cadsuane's talking to Perrin about Rand, and she says that Rand can do whatever he wants as long as he makes it to Tamwan Gaidon, and she has the opportunity to teach him how to laugh and cry again. And she understands that Rand will fight guidance, and she sees how hardened he's gotten. So yeah, I hope their arrangement with her as his advisor works out. We already see her advising him on how to deal with the sea folk, and so far I'm liking the dynamic. Her slapping the shit out of Rand was whack though. He really needs to stop letting her do that. I hope he does now that he had time to harden to iron while locked up in that cell. I do wonder though if Perrin just uses compulsion on every Aes Sedai she meets, because even Cadsuane said that she feels more in a confiding mood with Perrin. I feel like Cadsuane will mess up Rand pretty bad at some point, because surely Rand has to go nuts sooner or later. We've had those visions of him going crazy during a storm with the little dragons around his arm, and we've also had the vision of him tall as a mountain, crushing buildings beneath his feet. So I feel like something needs to happen soon that causes him to crack. If I had to guess, probably something to do with the Aes Sedai that have sworn to him, but only because they are compelled to. Again, I feel like there's fuck all in this book to go off of for predictions. I'm sure there's a bunch of foreshadowing that has gone over my head, But like, there's no viewings or visions besides one shitty one for Brigitte, where she has too many adventures in her aura. So I guess she's gonna be continuing to be reborn after she dies. Perrin is so mysterious. I love characters like that who pull the strings and everybody's none the wiser. I'm really not sure if she's a dark friend anymore. I actually don't think she is anymore, because she mentioned last book that her last big mistake was 71 years ago. So I think maybe the reason why she reaches such extremes in ensuring that Rand reaches Tarmon Gaidon is because of that. Or maybe that's just the incident that made her turn to the shadow in the first place. I'm really not sure anymore. Mat's next up, but I'm pretty sure we got Tuon's introduction first, so I'll talk about her. So we finally meet the Daughter of the Nine Moons. This was a long time coming. I didn't expect it to happen until we actually went to Seanchan. So we meet Tuon, and not only do we meet Tuon, we meet Shemiraj too, because Anat is most definitely Shemiraj. I would be shocked if she wasn't. I remember when Shemiraj first appeared, Messana said she was taller than most men, she had dark skin, and she dressed in black a lot. Then you have Anat, who is always dressed in black. Matt says that she has skin almost as dark as her clothes, and that she's tall even for an Aiel. And she doesn't just match the physical traits. When Tuon saw Anat at the railings for the ship, she noted that she was not wearing a coat or a cloak, as if the weather doesn't affect her. And then when Matt is hearing her speak for the first time, he notices how she doesn't have the typical Seanchan drawl. So I'd be very surprised if that was not Shemiraj. Makes me wonder how much the Seanchan have been infiltrated by the Shadow, if the Empress herself is assigning Shemiraj as Tuon Sofia. Adat said that she was sure Lady Surratt is loyal, so maybe Surratt is a dark friend. And she also told Tuon not to let Rand figure out how dangerous she is to him, so I'm curious what that's about. We also learned that Tuon tested for being Soldam, so I guess that means she's able to learn to channel. I wonder if that makes her Eldrin reborn, because we know Mat is most likely Aemon. I actually think Tuon is going to die at some point, because there was a vision from Egwene in Lord of Chaos where Mat has two ravens on his shoulders. So if it's like Perrin with the Hawk and the Falcon, then I'm guessing those two ravens are Tuon and Tylin. I don't see why either of those would be represented as ravens though, unless they're both dark friends or they both die. I'd be very surprised if Tylin and Tuon were dark friends though, but I guess that would be Mat's luck if all three women he got with in the series ended up being dark friends. Something else interesting from Tuon's PV is that she said that she excelled at wrestling. In the Shadow Rising, Egwene had a vision of Mat wrestling with a Seanchan woman who tied an invisible leash to him. So maybe that's how she's dangerous to Rand, if she's going to tie an invisible leash to one of the Taviran he needs. I loved how Jordan did the Seanchan occupation, and we actually get to see what life's like after they take over. And it's really interesting how life for common folk is pretty much improved under Seanchan occupation, but it comes at the cost of an insane level of cruelty that has been ingrained into their culture, to the point where they just see it as normal, common sense. Like, the way they treat and view female channelers as less than dogs is so disturbing, and so is their whole system of being property. It's crazy how Soldam treat the Mani and try and turn them into these brainwashed, submissive pets, and eager to please pets too. And it's always so unsettling seeing Seanchan interact with the Mani. Like, Tuon thinks she's being a nice person just because she's giving Lydia some treats after she beats her. Or seeing how Bethaman tries to break Teslin. And the Mani are being taken out for walks for exercise by the Soldam. It is so sick and twisted. They actually see these women as subhuman pets. We pick up with Mat in Eludra's wagon, where he's trying to learn her Illuminator secrets. There was a vision from Egwene in Book 7 of him reaching into the sky to grab some fireworks, and that would lead to many deaths. Maybe her secrets lead to that, I'm not sure. After he leaves her wagon, he gathers Oliver, Tom, and Bestland before heading back to the palace. And it turns out that the mistress of the ships and her blade master are already dead. So I guess Min's viewing of Hareen becoming the mistress of the ships is going to come true soonish. I love Matt's complete lack of self-awareness. He thinks the band and Tom are being a bad influence on Oliver when he's basically a mini Matt, and he hates Luca for flirting with every woman around. I mean, that's worse lack of self-awareness than Nynaeve, to be honest. So he splits off from the others, and he gets attacked by the Golem on his way back to the palace. And I thought that was a pretty good fight. I liked getting to see Matt have to desperately struggle in a fight rather than just depend on his new combat skills from his new memories. And then the Golem has to flee because it's not allowed to be seen by anyone other than its prey after Noel shouts. I said in my book 7 review that I think Noel is Jane Firestarter. I think this book pretty much confirms it because he's a crazy good storyteller and he's been to Shara. So Matt brings Noel with him back to the palace and leaves him with the Red Arms before heading to Tylen's apartments in a huff and finds her in the company of Surratt, Tuon, Seleucia, and Anat. I don't really get why Anat is not after Matt in this book if she is Shemiraj. Like, Ishmael was after Perrin and Matt both before he died. So did he just like not pass on the memo or something? And of course, Matt being Matt is as cheeky with the Shanchan as possible without them sentencing him to death. And as soon as Tuon sees Matt, she approaches him and gives him a full body inspection before immediately offering to buy him. So I think it's pretty clear that the foretelling she mentioned at the start of her introduction from Lydia mentions Matt in some way, or at least shows some of his features, because she did take special interest in his signet ring at some point and Ashandarai, although maybe she just looked at Ashandarai because there's ravens on it and she likes omens. The three Tiberian boys are starting to see colours now when they think of each other. This started for Rand when he was kept in the box. Rand said that the colours almost form an image he can make out. No idea what's going on there, but it is something I'm keeping an eye on. If I was to make a guess, I'd say they might be seeing who each other are the reincarnation of. So Matt gets to the point where he really wants to escape Ebadar using Luca's circus. So he starts making preparations by arranging a hiding spot in the Wandering Woman with Satala Anan for him to hide his gold in and his clothes. And then when he gets back to the palace after visiting the Bell Founder, he finds Tuon inspecting his Ashandarai. He goes back to the Wandering Woman to check on his stash when Satala Anan comes in with Elayne before Egianan and Damon barge into the kitchens. I was so happy to see those guys again. I really enjoyed them during book 4. So Matt agrees to help Elayne escape Ebudar, showing once again how much of a saint he is. If it was me and Elayne was trying to talk to me like that after I agreed to help, I would be piecing out with a swiftness. I am way too petty for that. So Matt finds out it was Teslin that left the note for him during book 7, and he decides to try and save her too, which gets him roped into trying to save Edicina as well. Then he bumps into Tuon on his way back from the kennels. Tuon is just stalking Matt for his entire arc, and he just never makes the connection despite catching her in the act on several occasions. I'm glad we got chapters from Egianan's POV. It was a much needed catch up, and we got to see how her relationship with Damon is going. So far, I love their dynamic. Damon is just not cut out for Shanchan culture at all, and he's slowly working Egianan away from being too strict on it. And he says he intends to marry her. And it turns out that Surratt did in fact actually get that male Adam after the events in Tanchico. So there are so many possibilities now for the woman that can cause Rand harm a second time if Perrin's not there that I really have no idea who it could be. Like, it could be the Aes Sedai that were compelled by Perrin, it could be Perrin herself, it could be Katswain, it could be Tuon, it could be Surratt, it could be Olivia. There's just so many options now, I'm really not sure. Tylin and Surratt leave the city to go check out the parts of Altara that Tylin could be ruling over, so Matt makes this plan to get the Aes Sedai out of the city using an Adam and some Damani and Suldam disguises, and hope seems lost when he tries to use one of the Adam with Satala Anan and Elayne, and it fails terribly, sending Elayne into a state of shock. So, Satala Anan, I think she is an ex-Amerlin of the Tower that has been stilled. The reason I think this is because she was so hopeful that the Adam would work. Well, not so hopeful. She was a bit hopeful that the Adam would work. And also, Elayne was talking about how she recognizes her voice. So I think she has been stilled and exiled from the tower, or just left herself. We know she's not Ebudari, and the kin treat her with respect even though she's not one of them. So I don't know. Maybe she's not an ex-Amerlin, but I do think she is somebody that has been stilled. We've heard in previous books that one of the way women cope with being stilled is starting a family and having kids. And Anan has a huge ass family that had to escape with her husband on the boats. We also saw how many of her kids she has working in the Wandering Woman itself. And even just being the mistress of the Wandering Woman could be another way that she's using to cope with being stilled. I love the meeting between Matt and Egianan. He is just so cheeky all the time that it's always entertaining, and I loved how well he played out that whole meeting and how he used the Shanchan's restlessness over the Golem attacks to scare Egianan into being more willing to work with him. Then fast forward and we get the plan in action, starting off with the crew heading to the kennels. And Matt makes this bargain with one of the sea folk Damani for her to wait 3 hours before attempting to free her people. So I'm looking forward to seeing that payoff down the line because, what was her name? Nestel said that she will remember Matt. Disaster strikes and Matt finds Tylin back in her apartment early. I actually thought this was a pretty good ending to their relationship. You know, Tylin recognizes it's time to say goodbye. They give their farewells and they say their I'll miss yous, and then Elayne helps Mat set it up so that she doesn't look suspicious. I mean, considering how their relationship started, I'll take it. Then when Mat's trying to make it to the stable yards, we get the confrontation between him and Tuon actually starts smiling during it, so I feel like that was as much as a test as it was her trying to stop him from escaping. Then Noelle comes in out of nowhere with the assist, and they tie her up before the others arrive, and Mat finally finds his Daughter of the Nine Moons. I wonder how things will actually go now with the Seanchan. This was definitely a huge blunder on Surot's and Tylin's parts. Of all the reactions for Mat to have to actually finding the Daughter of the Nine Moons, I didn't expect him to just be like, well, that's my wife. Yeah, no, it's crazy, but that's my wife, so I guess she's coming with us. And Tuon had that knowing smile on her face after Mat said that, so I think Lydia 100% gave her a foretelling pertaining to Mat in some way. You can really see the Taviran pull working with how Joelynn's woman ends up being Amathera. Jordan just absolutely blue balls us with the ending to this arc. We don't even get to see the actual escape. I feel like the plan is going to be messed up by Beslan and his plans for an uprising, but I'm very excited to see where Mat's arc goes. He has a pretty amazing party assembled right now with Tuon, Noelle, Tom, Joelyn, and there's even Damon and Egyanin for now. So that's going to do it for book 9, guys. Another solid entry in the series. I finished it pretty quick as well. I think I had like 2 chapters left after 3 days. So yeah, that's a wrap. Thanks for watching. Next video will be on Crossroads of Twilight. Not looking forward to that one. So yeah, see you guys in the next one.